I'd like to call to order the regular formal meeting of the Iowa City City Council for July the 16th, 2019. Roll call.
Cole. Here. Mims.
Here.
Salee. Taylor.
Here.
Teague. Here. Thomas. Here. Throgmorton.
Here. So just for the benefit of the audience, Council Member Salee will not be here again tonight. We understand, at least Bruce was telling us, that she expects to return on the 20th of this month. So we certainly hope she returns safely, and look forward to seeing her. Beyond that, I would like to make a brief opening statement. This past weekend, Immigration and Customs Enforcement officials were expected to conduct major raids targeting undocumented migrant parents and their children. Indications were that more such raids would take place throughout this week. As far as I know, no major raids have actually occurred so far, though I did read of a significant one in San Diego, and there may have been some others that I don't know about. But I want to reiterate what this council has said before. As we stated in a resolution adopted on December the 6th, 2016, quote, "We strongly condemn any political rhetoric, regardless of viewpoint, that involves threatening or intimidating language, and any actions that involve the threat or fact of physical harm to others. And we celebrate our community's diversity and welcome all residents who live here, regardless of their national origin, color, religion, sexual orientation, or gender identity." To translate, this is me talking now, not the council in 2016. To translate, we reject efforts to frighten and endanger individuals and families by raiding their homes at night. We reject efforts to separate children from their parents and then place those children in inhumane conditions. We reject racist efforts to divide Americans in terms of race, ethnicity, religion, or country of origin. Moreover, as we stated in a resolution adopted on January the 11th, 2017, quote, "Except as necessary for public safety, as determined by the police chief or designee, or as otherwise required by state or federal law, the Iowa City Police Department shall not undertake any law enforcement action for the purpose of detecting the presence of undocumented persons or devote any public resources to the enforcement of federal immigration law." And there are lots of details associated with that resolution that matter in terms of what the police department would actually do. So me speaking again, to translate, we will continue focusing our local law enforcement efforts on ensuring public safety. We urge the President and our elected representatives in the U.S. Congress to devise immigration and border enforcement policies that are fair, humane, and reflect American values. Okay, thanks. So now we move on to item 2, which is proclamations. And I noticed that the person I expected to be accepting the proclamation is not here. Do you know if Harry's going to be here or not? Okay. But I'll read it anyhow. It has to do with Americans with Disabilities Act Anniversary Day. Whereas the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, was passed on July the 26th, 1990 to ensure the civil rights of persons with disabilities. And whereas July 26 will mark the 29th anniversary of the signing of the ADA, which expanded access and opportunities for people with disabilities. And whereas the ADA has done this by reducing barriers and changing perceptions and increasing full participation in community life. And whereas the full promise of the ADA will only be reached if we remain committed to continue our efforts to fully implement this act. And whereas Iowa City affirms the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities as set forth and embodied in the ADA, and whereas the Iowa City government and residents are proud to recognize the accomplishments and contributions of our residents with disabilities, And whereas throughout the year and on the anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the City of Iowa City celebrates and recognizes the progress that has been made by reaffirming the principles of equality and inclusion and recommitting our efforts to reach full ADA compliance. Now, therefore, I, James A. Throgmorton, Mayor of Iowa City, do hereby proclaim July the 26th, 2019 as Americans with Disabilities Act Anniversary Day, and call upon all community members to observe this day with appropriate ceremonies and activities that celebrate the contributions of persons with disabilities and to renew our commitment to the Americans with Disabilities Act. So I assume there's no one here to accept the proclamation. Yeah, apparently there's not, so we'll move on to items 3 through 8, which are the consent calendar. Could I have a motion to consider adoption of the consent calendar as presented or amended?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Teague. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 9, community comment. So this is for any, if you want to discuss any item that's not on a formal meeting agenda, please feel free to come up to the podium and do so. Please don't take any longer than 3 to 5 minutes. And state your name when you come up, sign in when you come up. So would anybody like to address us? Like Brandon, for example? Hi, Brandon.
City Council, Mayor. A couple of things. One's pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Is you got folks? We have pianos that are out in Iowa City. It's kind of a cool idea, and there are dozens of people who play the piano regularly. I'm one, but even more better than that, which is also pretty cool, is that kids play. Kids who have had some lessons, they get out there and they play. 2 of the 3 pianos have been in disrepair for 5 weeks, which is a pretty large proportion of the summer. One has got 30 stuck keys, the other has no pedals, and that's 2 out of the 3 pianos. So I just thought someone want to pick that up. Apparently no one else seems to know who's the right person there. West Music keeps passing it. Downtown Association says it's the council, so who knows? Anyway, something that could be improved. 2, I just like to bring up a general issue, which is that as we look across the street from here, we see the Chauncey, and it's now been 4 summers that it's been under construction, and. It used to be a common area. There used to be a park there. Used to be a bicycle library, which was free for everybody. And I would just like to emphasize that, this space belongs to the public, right? I mean, I know that there are wealthy landlord, planners, tenants going in there. But we've lost, for instance, 1,400 days so far of the park for the people. But what are we getting back? What do we get for that destruction? And I think that's a good point to bring up. As we look across, we already see that in the park space, there's the advertisement which says, "Spare me." I can't help but look at that and think of it in a certain way. There's advertisement now in the park area. That's 1,400 days so far. Now, kids and teenagers need space, not to mention adults, seniors, and families. But, you put in a bowling alley in there. I don't know how many of you folks are bowlers. I don't know your handicaps per se, but I think that bowling alley should be free for anybody 18 and under. Why not give it back to us a little bit, just a little bit? Free bowling. I know people, you can get hit in the head with one of those balls. If you've seen The Big Lebowski, it's not all play. But, why not? Who does that land belong to? That's common space. I think that we can do better than that. I know there's a film going in there, but this is paid for. This isn't common space anymore. And I would like you to hustle up those people regarding the park which hurts everybody. Thousands of people are affected. So that would be my point. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Anyone else? Good evening, Adil. How are you?
Adil Adams, Iowa City. 2 weeks ago, I went to Mercer Park. There is an event about Juneteenth, and this is the first time I go to see these events about Juneteenth. And there was food and music and different cultures. And this just remind me 20 years ago when I came here in Iowa City, or before that. There is diversity. They used to do it at Field House. Suddenly this event stopped. I don't know why. And I know this event, every community in Iowa, they bring their food and they bring their clothes, their music. And really it's a very nice day or good day. Start from 9 in the morning till 9 p.m. It not cost the city or the university any money, because as I said, every community brings their food, and they show how they dance, and they do henna, some Indian, some African, some Indonesian, some. So all the cultures, more than 20 cultures. And this was real diversity. I want to ask the city council to see if they can start again doing this diversity. And really everybody will be happy that day, because you can see your culture. Like Sudanese, they bring their bride and groom and they do their dance and bring their foods and do henna. So I hope the city council can adopt this again, or ask the university or other community to help to do these events again. Thank you.
Thank you, Adil.
Good evening.
Good evening, Martha.
Martha Norbeck. Thank you for continuing the climate conversation this evening. And I jotted down some notes to follow up on a couple things that were said that I think might be helpful for you to know. So one question was, what kind of heat changes are we really looking at? Do we actually know? So there are actually multiple tools out there that actually study this exact thing. And so one that I just looked up while you were talking is you can type in hundreds of cities around the country and look and see in 60 years, what will our climate be like? And Iowa City is actually in that list. And in 60 years, in 2080, our climate will be like Ponca City, Oklahoma, which is 13.5 degrees Fahrenheit warmer on average in the winter. Now, that may seem like a long time for you, and you may not be here, but our kids are going to be here, and that's going to be affecting their lives. And how many things are going to change? Just wrap your head around that. What if Iowa were like Ponca City, Oklahoma? Very different, which leads to air quality, because that means our growing seasons are longer. And when you ask about what are the health impacts of climate change, so you do a quick little search, health impacts of climate change. The CDC has information, the EPA has information, the World Health Organization has information. On July 13th, NPR actually had a story that said, has your doctor talked to you about climate change? Because our growing seasons are getting longer, the amount of pollen in the air for the duration of that time is exacerbating people with respiratory issues. Their issues are getting worse. And then when heat and humidity combine, it creates ozone, which leads to smog, which traps particulates in the air. So if you have emphysema or bronchitis, you're increasing the chance of having an attack. If you can imagine, right now we have LIHEAP. You cannot have your utility cut off in the winter. Well, if we're having 5-8 days a year, a summer that are over 100 degrees, and people are getting their summer utilities cut off, what's the health impact of that? Because you can imagine if you have your utilities cut off because you can't pay for air conditioning or you don't even have air conditioning, you don't have a refrigerator. So suddenly, not only are you uncomfortable and your kids are like a nightmare of uncomfortability, you don't have safe food. So you've got to throw out all that food, and until you can afford to pay that utility bill, you're eating out. And what kind of quality of food is that? What are the economic impacts of that? And so when you start to unravel this and look at these and the threads and how they affect our lives, it's pretty broad. And so I think it's really important for all of us to gain some familiarity with what the implications are of these changes. And Mayor Throckmorton, you suggested creating a fund. Love that idea. I have no idea how it happens either, but I love the idea. But to put it in perspective, we have 32,000 households in Iowa City. And if you spent $1,000 on every household, that would be $32 million. Now, okay, you say, oh, well, the city's not going to come up with $32 million. But that's not an expense. It's an economic opportunity. I mean, those are jobs. If you're improving homes, you're creating more work that is local. If you're trying to do energy efficiency or solar or adding air conditioning, that's all work that's local. You're not exporting that work. So that work is not just a cost to the city. It's an opportunity. I mean, I hate to talk about like climate change is a crisis and we're all going to die. Oh, and by the way, there's economic opportunities. But with every crisis, there are economic opportunities. And if we couch it that way and consider all the ways we can massage that, we can move forward more effectively. And there was a mention of how are we going to achieve zero? I don't know. But, you know, we didn't know how we were going to get to the moon either. And this is, I think today was the anniversary of the first moonwalk, or yesterday, one of those days. So we made it, and they were doing calculations by hand, for heaven's sakes. So we can figure this out. We just have no idea right now how we're going to get there. So I have optimism that we have the capacity to meet this challenge. We just have to have the will. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Anyone else? Wow. What an unusual night. Okay, so I see no one else. We'll move to item 10, planning and zoning matters. Item 10A, rezoning at 225 North Gilbert Street, local historic landmark. This is an ordinance rezoning approximately 0.10 acres of property from Central Business Service, CB2, to CB2 with a historic district overlay, CB2/OHD, for the property located at 225 North Gilbert Street. I'll open the public hearing. Good evening, Danielle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Danielle Sitzman, Neighborhood Development Services. 8:32 a.m., the launch of Apollo 11 on its way to the moon, arriving several days from now. If you want to watch the recreation of it, I would recommend an app called JFK Moonshot. You can actually virtually impose wherever you're at with the current orbit of the lunar lander. Very cool. A little closer to home tonight, a couple of historic landmark designations. These are both city-owned properties, this case and the next case, 225 North Gilbert and 229 North Gilbert. The city purchased these properties in September of 2018 from Mercy Hospital with the intention of preserving the two structures, and they were both originally considered for the university program. Due to the location of the homes and the surrounding commercial uses, the city wanted to determine the demand for retail, office, and community community arts and culture uses for the properties and issued an RFP to evaluate that. Public Space One responded to that RFP and is in the purchase of signing a purchase agreement, which was also on your agenda tonight to set the public hearing for, to acquire both homes as community art space for exhibitions, education, and other events, as well as a community print studio and individual artist studios. Prior to the completion of that sale, the city wishes to apply historic landmark designation zoning in order to preserve them from demolition and to help stabilize the historic character of the neighborhood. So a little bit of context. This is one of the two properties. The next one on the agenda is just north of that. This shows the current zoning and the placement of the properties within kind of a commercial area rather than a residential area. As part of historic designation, we did complete an intensive survey using a consultant. They researched both of these properties and found very interesting histories that do qualify them for designation as local historic landmarks. Both houses have connections to one family in particular. This house was built in 1904 by a Charles Menser for the Christian and Clara Dostal, and I'm going to not say this last name correctly, but Hohenscheuch, I think. Both prominent in Iowa City society with ties to the local immigrant community at the time. The landmark rezoning does also require a rezoning. So again, it is evaluated for compliance with the comprehensive plan. The Planning Commission did review it against the comprehensive plan and the local district plans and found that it was designating them as historic would uphold the goals and ideals contained in those documents. The Historic Preservation Commission also first evaluated the proposal and found that there were elements of the history, both of the architecture and the stories of the people that live there, that qualify them for historic preservation. So this case is coming to you tonight with a recommendation from both bodies for designation as local landmarks. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Danielle? Hearing none, would anybody else like to address this topic? Seeing no one, I'm going to ask the council whether you are inclined to vote in accordance with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation. If not, we'd have to offer the commission to consult. All right, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion for first consideration, please?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Cole, seconded by Thomas. Discussion.
Can I just say, who is it, Jim Zabel or Gary Dolphin says, I love it, I love it, I love it. I love everything about this particular project and this rezoning that's going to allow this to happen. The backstory, of course, is this is the North Market Square sort of commercial district. These two rezonings, to be able to do the historic preservation, not only do we preserve these two historic structures, but we also open up a new opportunity for Public Space One, which I cannot think of a more fitting use of this. You know, Public Space One is an organization that has worked really hard for a long time, and they literally started in the basement, and they developed programming, and they kept at it. You know, I think a lot of times in our community we want something to happen instantly. Well, it's great to see this particular organization evolve over time and finally have a home. But not only that, though, I think the impact this rezoning will have on the block as a whole is significant, because if these were not preserved and protected, the likelihood of a much more significant, high-density, incompatible development, I think, would occur. And many of the community members also remembered we had a historic structure that we evaluated landmarking, ultimately did not do that. But I think that this is going to make it more likely, in my view, that other structures will also be similar. So there's just so much that I like about this. And I also want to commend the staff. Staff identified this as an opportunity, flagged it for us, knew sort of what the vision was going to be, and we're going to make this happen. So I can't wait to see what they do with this particular project, Public Space One.
I'm also in favor of this rezoning, and in relation to the new owners, I hope that they too will embrace the historic nature of both of these properties.
Yeah, the stars really aligned on this one, and when that happens, it's really very exciting. You know, the historic character will be preserved. It's in a location which will help stabilize the block context, and then the programming with Public Space One. So it's a home run as far as this goes, and this is one aspect of it. So it's I'm very enthusiastic about this.
Any other comment? Well, hearing none, I'll just say a couple of things. I'm going to support this, but I would also like to thank Tim Weitzel, who was hired as a consultant to prepare a history of immigrant communities and culture in the 19th century as part of this particular proposal for rezoning and the other one that we're going to consider in just a minute. And he did a terrific job, and I really admire, I love the kind of information, the insight you can get from reading these kinds of documents. You can learn so much more about Iowa City's history and who the individuals were and what they were doing, why they were doing it, and what they did to preserve certain structures or just live in the structures, and what was going on around them. So if you haven't had a chance to read one of these documents, like the one Tim put together for tonight's rezonings, I urge you to take a look at it. It's tremendously informative. I also want to make a quick comment. It has nothing to do with the vote. Danielle, you said something about the launching, I guess, of the Apollo, which is Apollo 12, 11? Yeah, so I was in Paris that night when that particular rocket was launched, and I was in Brussels, Belgium, when Neil Armstrong first walked on the moon. And I have very strong memories of seeing these two events on little black and white screens in Paris and then Brussels. So it's quite memorable for me. Has nothing to do with the vote, though. Okay, any other comment about the topic at hand? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mims? Yes. Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes?
Cole?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0, which gets us to item 10B, rezoning at 229 North Gilbert Street, local historic landmark. This is an ordinance rezoning approximately 0.09 acres of property from Central Business Service, CB2, to CB2 with a historic district overlay, CB2/OHD, for property located at 229 North Gilbert Street. I'll open the public hearing. Danielle, you're up again.
Thank you, Mayor. This is the second of the two properties, the more northern one. Again, the intensive survey revealed that there were significant historical events that occurred, and the architecture of the building was significant enough to rise to the level of local landmark designation. The Historic Preservation Commission therefore recommended approval of the overlay zone. It was then again re-evaluated by the Planning and Zoning Commission for compliance with the comprehensive plan and found to support the goals there. Again, it's coming before you tonight with a recommendation for both bodies for adoption. That concludes my report.
Any questions for Danielle? Thank you. Would anybody else like to address this topic? Seeing no one, I need to ask you whether you are inclined to support the rezoning? Yep. Okay, so I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion to give first consideration, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Thomas. Discussion.
Mayor, if I can add one thing, I think it's appropriate to recognize Mercy Hospital's role in this. We bought those homes from Mercy. They had every opportunity to put those on the market and probably get a pretty good value for those two homes given that location. Instead, they came to us and asked if we had an interest in doing something that we really felt would be appropriate for the community. So without Mercy's willingness to come to us first, we wouldn't have this opportunity today.
And Jeff, could you briefly comment to what the nonprofit for this particular, or what's the proposed use here?
Public Space One is proposing to purchase both homes.
Oh, both homes, sorry. Yep, okay.
Could we have a tour of the interior? I'd love to do that. I don't know if anybody else would like to join me, but I was really impressed with 229 in particular, just by looking at the photographs in the packet. but I'd like to see both of them.
Yeah, well, Tracy and her staff can line that up for you.
Great. Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 10C, zoning code text amendment related to separation distance requirement for fuel dispensing equipment. This is an ordinance amending Title 14 zoning code to modify the provisional and special exception approval criteria regarding the distance separation between fuel dispensing equipment and residential zones for quick vehicle service uses. Would someone make a motion to give second consideration for this, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mem, seconded by Thomas. Discussion. So is anybody going to brief us on what was learned about, the pollutant and health implications
I
of
don't
this?
have a lot of comment for you, but we did provide an additional memo kind of outlining the gas station regulations, both by the EPA and the Clean Air Act, as well as the state of Iowa, and also attempting to kind of explain staff's reasoning for this particular way of amending the code versus others that were evaluated. The Clean Air Act does regulate, or has regulated in the past, vapors that escape from both fueling the underground storage tanks and fueling vehicles at the pumps. The difference that Councilmember Thomas may have noticed at pumps around the country has to do with stage 2 vapor recovery that was mandated for certain cities that suffer from smog, so ground level ozone. They were mandated if they had air quality that was out of the EPA's regulated standards to become non-attainment areas, and they were required to have those systems installed in their pumps. Since that time, vehicle technology has basically taken that vapor recovery system into the vehicle design itself. And so actually the EPA has lifted that requirement from non-attainment cities and left it up to those cities or states whether they want to continue to capture vapor that way. Iowa was never a non-attainment state, never mandated by the EPA to have those recovery systems, and so therefore you don't see them on our pumps. Again, that technology has been integrated into vehicles since the mid to early 2000s, I believe, is what the number was. So little learning curve for us about how gas stations work and how they're regulated. And then I think staff's walked through other ways we thought of how to adjust these standards, but then chose this one as the best option.
Great. Any questions for Danielle?
And again, this is a citywide standard, right?
Right.
So it's driven by this particular location on Mormon Trek, but it's a citywide standard. And
right.
Can you maybe elaborate a little bit? How many other potential sites could an ordinance change facilitate additional gas stations?
So we only found 3 gas stations in our kind of survey of existing stations that had any challenge meeting the existing standard, which is a greater distance. We don't really feel like the gas station market is looking to locate in neighborhoods. They tend to like to be on higher vehicle traveled streets with greater visibility. They prefer to have larger setbacks from their property lines so that they are more visible that way. So we didn't feel that there was in changing this ordinance that we would create more demand for gas stations in neighborhoods, simply accommodating this one.
Okay, thanks. I noticed in looking at our late handout that Keith Wegan submitted some additional information from the EPA stating and discussing why stage 2 vapor recovery is not required. Is Keith in the room? No? Yeah, Keith, do you want to say anything about it? You don't have to. It's a 2012 rule from EPA, right?
Yeah, Keith Wagan with CDA, also with me, Siobhan Harmon with Come and Go. Generally speaking, what we learned and what we know is stage 2 recovery is redundant based on the recovery systems that are now built into vehicles, as she mentioned just a bit ago. So the other thing that we wanted to add to the conversation, we talked a little bit last time about vapors from filling up the fuel tanks on the site, and wanted to just clarify what that process is. And I think we refer to that as stage 1 recovery, which is essentially when the fuel truck comes to the site, pulls up next to where the underground storage tanks are. There's a vent hose that the driver connects to the vent port on the underground tanks. Then he starts filling the tank, and as that fuel in the tank level rises, the vapors are forced back into the fuel truck. The fuel truck then takes those vapors back to the fuel supply location where he got the fuel from. That fuel is then condensed and essentially recycled back into fuel. So pretty much it's a circulating process.
And the tanks are below the frost line?
Just for,
sorry.
State your name.
Siobhan Harmon, Come and Go. Our tanks or USTs are put below the frost line, so it's a very stable environment under there. It remains at about 50 degrees at all times. So again, it's just, very stable with the vapors.
Great. Any questions for Keith or Siobhan? Thanks.
Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address this topic? Okay, seeing no one else, council discussion?
I'm going to support the change. I think staff has done, their research as usual in terms of looking at not expecting major impacts across the city, and I think the changes, obviously, in the technology. I think we've all seen, when you put gas in your car, the openings for the gas tanks are different than they used to be and all that sort of stuff in terms of helping to prevent that escape of vapors. So I feel comfortable with the change and will support it.
I also support it. I think it's, after seeing especially the numbers that were shared with us across the city, it's just totally inconsistent, and so this will help to provide some consistency. And it was true nationwide, too, comparing random numbers all across the state and the country. So it's good, at least for our area, to have a consistent number.
Yeah, I appreciate the additional research that went in between our first and second reading, so I will be supportive of this as well.
I do appreciate the additional information that was provided. Again, it was the particulars that mattered to me as far as stage 1, stage 2, just capturing the safety for our residents that are surrounding. We also have the Fire Marshal, Brian Greer, having a letter of support. So I do think that with the change that we have, I will support this. As a gas station, it does come with a risk, no matter how close or how far. So I will support this. This does seem like a reasonable request to me.
As I said during the first meeting, I don't necessarily have a problem with this particular location. I think for me, I just have concerns about, I think it's an incompatible use, and I do view this as potentially, even though it potentially be incremental, could facilitate additional incompatible uses with our neighborhoods. So I'm still going to be the dissenting vote on this, but I appreciate the thought that went into this, and it's looking like it's going to pass in any event.
Okay, roll call, please.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
No.
Mims?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-1. Could I have a motion to accept correspondence, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Thomas. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Item 10D, rezoning at the northwest corner of Benton Street and Orchard Street. This is an ordinance conditionally rezoning approximately 1.75 acres of land located at the northwest corner of Benton Street and Orchard Street from medium-density single-family residential, RS8, to Riverfront Crossings Orchard, RFCO. This is pass and adopt. Could I have a motion to pass and adopt?
Move pass and adoption.
Second.
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Cole. Discussion? I'm guessing no one wants to address this topic. I should have asked that initially. Yeah, apparently nobody does. Did you want to say something?
I just want to say I'll support this, but I do have some concerns as far as the traffic, again, going on and off of Benton and around Orchard, and do hope, again, with all our environmental concern discussions this evening, that the developers are conscious of the LEED guidelines and other means of reducing any impact on the environment. I'm not sure what the newer building towards the north of this development, what kinds of methods they've utilized for those guidelines, and also to absolutely ensure the availability of affordable units. My other concern was now along Benton, there is a nice tree coverage, and I'm hoping that they'll take that into consideration too and keep some green space.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims? Yes. Taylor?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 11, Central Iowa Power Cooperative Utility Easement. This is a resolution approving the conveyance of a utility easement to Central Iowa Power Cooperative. I'll open the public hearing. Is anybody going to briefly state what this is all about?
This is a easement conveyance to Central Illinois Power Cooperative at our landfill. It's an electrical transmission line. It does no bearing on our landfill operations currently nor in the future. So the conveyance is based on fair market value, fairly routine item in staff size.
Our South Wastewater Treatment Plant gets electric power from Central Iowa? No?
No. Eastern Iowa, yes.
Great, thank you. Okay, anybody else want to address this topic? All right, seeing no one, I'm going to close the public hearing.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Moved by Mims, seconded by Cole. Discussion. Hearing none, roll call, please.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims? Yes. Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 12, establish urban renewal area. This is a resolution determining an area of the city to be a combination economic development and blight area, and that the rehabilitation, conservation, redevelopment, development, or a combination thereof of such area is necessary in the interest of the public health, safety, or welfare of the residents of the city, designating such area as appropriate for an urban renewal project, and adopting the Forest View Urban Renewal Plan therefore. I'll open the public hearing. Hi, Wendy. What's up?
Good evening, Council. I'm Wendy Ford, Economic Development Coordinator, and we're here to talk about the Forest View Urban Renewal Area. The purpose for establishing this area would be to enable the city to consider financial participation in a project, an urban renewal project within the area. The Forest View Urban Renewal Plan is established on the basis of a combination of slum and blight and economic development. To be determined a blighted area, the state code includes 5 conditions, including areas of a municipality in which there is a substantial number of slum, deteriorated or deteriorating structures, or defective or inadequate street layout. A blighted area need only meet one of the conditions or a combination of those conditions, and this one does. The Forest View Mobile Home Court currently exhibits these conditions in that a substantial number of the existing mobile homes are in such a condition that they could not be moved or relocated to another area due to their dilapidated condition or deteriorating conditions. Many of the homes are decades old, have had little investment in maintenance over the years, and are notorious for fire hazard. Meeting the standard of inadequate street layout, there is only one access into and out of the neighborhood. The area is heavily wooded, and if a tree were to fall across the single access, there would be limited access by our emergency fire, ambulance, or police vehicles. And again, to be determined a slum area, you only need to meet one of 4 conditions the state sets out, and this does. There's also the designation of economic development, and that part of the designation simply indicates that the area is appropriate for commercial enterprises and that public improvements related to housing and construction of housing for low and moderate income families is appropriate. Regarding the comprehensive plan, as recently as April 2019, the comp plan was updated in consideration of development plans contemplated for this area. In June, the Planning and Zoning Commission reviewed the urban renewal plan for its conformity with that comp plan, and they voted 5-1 that the Forest View urban renewal plan conforms to the Iowa City comprehensive plan and the district plans. In that plan, there are 5 goals adopted, and those include that the developer or owner going forward should provide relocation assistance to the residents, that any development of multifamily must incorporate certain design standards for setbacks, woodland buffers, low-level lighting, etc., that they must preserve the scenic character of this primary entrance to the city using strict design guidelines, and preserve a buffer of existing trees and vegetation between Dubuque Street and any development and the homes there in the neighborhood. And finally, to allow access to the area from Dubuque Street between I-80 and Foster Road. And this 5th goal, in this case, is what is triggering the need for the urban renewal plan. North Dubuque LLC, owners of the property, approached the city about a project and to share in the costs of building the infrastructure, the roads, trails, water, sewer, and stormwater within the area. And thus, we have included this one project in the urban renewal plan. And remember, always a development agreement with the details and proposed conditions for tax increment financing would come to the council later. This is just the part that sets the stage for your consideration of that at a later date. But let me show you first the extent of the urban renewal plan. As you can see on this map up here, includes the area you're familiar with in Forest View, and people have asked about the square element on the right, and that was simply the easiest way to legally describe the area that would include the intersection of Dubuque Street and the trail intersection required to continue north across the interstate. It doesn't necessarily mean that whole area will be encumbered by an urban renewal project. However, that legal description covers it. More succinctly, perhaps, is this map here, which shows and I don't see the cursor, there it is, the cursor, which shows the area where the new Forest View Drive would intersect with North Dubuque Street, turn northwest, continue westward over to the new Forest View neighborhood, and down to connect with the existing Algonquin Road. The considerations at this stage in working with the developer include the city's financial participation only in the parts of the road that serve to connect Dubuque Street to Algonquin Road. There are many other pieces of infrastructure in the area, in the development area, but the city's concern, at least the part we're working on now, would only involve that connection through the neighborhoods. Staff believes there are 2 significant benefits to this project. The first being the assurance that the developer will provide good housing options and relocation assistance to the neighbors in the current Forest View Mobile Home Park. In an affordable housing agreement, they will be agreeing to provide relocation either into the new neighborhood, into new multifamily buildings there, or they will also have the option of moving into similar type and style of housing off-site. As you know, one of the partners in the development group also owns other mobile home areas, and those would be made as options for relocation should any of the neighbors there desire that. So not only the affordable housing component for the residents of Forest View Mobile Home Court, but the other benefit would be the creation of the new Forest View Drive, which creates, especially importantly in times of high water, secondary access to the Peninsula and Mackinac neighborhoods, which, if you'll recall back, some of which had to be evacuated in high water, even though their homes were high and dry. There was no access into and out because of Foster Road. So we see this as a critical public benefit and a really good reason why the city should consider participating in this project. So at this point, all the statutory steps to establish an urban renewal plan have been completed. I guess not statutorily, but the Economic Development Committee met early in June 3rd, and voted to recommend this to City Council. And then the statutory requirements are to pass a resolution of necessity, which you did on June 18th, for the Planning and Zoning Commission to review the plan against the comprehensive plan, which they did, and you saw their memo in your packet. And finally, to have a taxing consultation with the other taxing entities in the county, and that was held on July 1st as well. So with all those steps completed, that completes my report, and I would open it up to any questions should you have them.
Wendy, did anybody from the county or the school board attend that consultation?
Nobody from the school board, but Lisa Green Douglas did with the county.
And she didn't raise any objections or concerns?
Nope. Yeah. Nope. She was interested in the project and from what I could tell, was enthusiastic about the affordable housing parts of the project especially.
Great. Any other questions for Wendy? All right, thank you. Would anybody else like to address this topic? All right, seeing no one else, I'm going to close the public hearing. Could I have a motion to approve the resolution, please?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Teague, seconded by Thomas. Discussion.
I think this is a pretty easy one. Next step forward. We knew this was coming.
Yeah, it comes as no surprise, right?
So harder work is before us next after this.
Yep. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Throgmorton?
Yes.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0. Item 13, council liaison to the CPRB, which is the Community Police Relations Board. This is an ordinance amending Title 8, entitled Police Regulations, Chapter 8, entitled Community Police Review Board, to create a city council liaison, and this is first consideration. Could I have a motion to give first consideration, please?
So move.
Acting clerks, what are you going to do?
Such a good training program.
Yeah.
Didn't tell you not to spill your water?
Sorry, Bruce, did you make a motion?
Yes.
Is there a second, please?
Second.
Moved by Teague, seconded by Thomas. Discussion.
I am not going to support this. I've listened to representatives of the CPRB and what their concerns are and issues are, and it just seems to me that there is ample opportunity for any of the members of the CPRB to come, approach any counselor at any time. I mean, they've got our phone numbers, they've got our email addresses. And so to me, it just starts setting up a process of one-offs that we don't really need. And I think if we need to do anything, maybe it's just better communicating, or maybe us taking the initiative periodically to reach out to people. But I don't see the need to designate a formal liaison to any of our commissions, including the CPRB.
So just in the spirit of dialogue, because I really haven't decided what I want to recommend or vote, how I want to vote, a counter argument would be that many new appointees, or actually appointees, don't know individual council members at all. And therefore, many of them are pretty leery of actually contacting a council member and coming to meet them and talking with them about specifics. It can be pretty daunting, you know, if you know, so that factor should be considered, I think.
But then I still don't see why they are different than others. Now, I realize some of the issues they deal with are incredibly sensitive and obviously incredibly important. I guess I might feel differently if we were seeing lots of situations where there were significant differences between the CPRB and the chief of police, but we're not seeing that. It's not like there's a lot of consternation or a real difficult, you know, situation that's going on. I think with Chief Matherly going to those meetings, I'm not sure if he still is, but I know he certainly was when he first came, and developing that relationship, I think that's there. And in regard to people being uncomfortable approaching council, I guess my response to that would be, if people have the fortitude to put their name forward to serve on a commission or any of our boards, then I would certainly hope that they have the strength of personality to be able to pick up a phone and make a phone call, or sit at home behind a computer where we can't see them and they can't see us, and at least send us an email that, hey, I've got a question or I've got a concern, could we sit down for a cup of coffee or whatever. I'm sorry, if people don't have that much strength, then they shouldn't be out serving, I don't think, on our commissions and boards. We're not, I don't think, imposing people. Yeah, we sit up here a few feet higher, but I think we're all very, very approachable, and I think that's, in my opinion, that's a pretty weak excuse.
I think you bring up some good concerns, Susan. I would not support this if it required us attending their meetings. I think it's very important that we, as all counselors, you know, really keep our focus on the most important thing, which are our biweekly meetings and our policy making. But Mr. Townsend made clear that he was not expecting that we would have regular attending of the meetings. And I do think there is something that, you know, to the extent that this would serve as a template for possible expansion of other direct contact, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think the more direct information that we can get and direct channels that we can get is a good thing. And then the final point that I would make is I view sort of policy making as this co-creating process with the residents, the boards, and of course the council and the learned expertise of our staff. And, you know, I know you value Orville and all the other members on the boards too. They're tremendous people, but I think in particular when they've thought about this and generated, and we've had some very good work sessions with them in terms of possible changes that we can make, I really want to give significant weight to those. So if it turned into a meeting where we were having to do a lot of meetings, I probably would not support this, but I think opening up that channel is important. And I think, as you had mentioned, this is probably one of the more important boards that we have. I think in terms of, fortunately, as he said, it's been very good lately, but I think really keeping our finger on the pulse of that board is going to be very, very important. So I am going to support it.
One of the things, when I look at this, this is the commissioners coming to us, and although it was a 4-to-1 vote, they're asking us to identify someone on council that they can go to. Essentially, for an issue that they don't feel comfortable to, well, that was one example, was an issue they wouldn't feel comfortable potentially bringing up, or they felt that it was going to just cause some disturbance there. Depending on what that might be, I think the council would have information to give a little history to, you know, of what has been done in the past by council. I do believe that the mayor brings up an important situation. Many of them don't know us, and I do believe that council, the council within itself can be intimidating for some individuals. You know, it invokes some stress, and I imagine that this is not the only board and commission that we have that would like to have someone identify that they can go to, or a council member that they meet. When I first came on council, I was discouraged to go to meetings by a few individuals. And not to say that they said you can't, but I was discouraged because definitely people may change their vote or their conversation may be changed in the presence in the presence of a counselor, and you don't want to influence whatever conversations are happening. So I do understand that. I do respect that. But again, I feel like they're asking for someone on the council that will be appointed that they can come to. I really do see it, as Rockne said, as an opportunity for maybe a template for something in the future. But even a trial basis, I think that we can certainly go back and change this in a year from now if we're finding it is, pointless because they don't anticipate using it very much. They've already mentioned that it may not even be used within, there's no issues now. It's really for something in the future when we don't have someone that has been like our current chief that is really, really fighting for the justice of on both sides, both the residents that are served as well as ensuring that the police are doing things according to what his expectations are and us as a council. So I do hear Susan Mims, and I do agree that this is a territory that we do need to tread lightly to go into. I am going to support it. I do support it with some reservations, quite honestly, because I do believe that one counselor can influence, but I don't think that this is a situation where we're just appointing someone to talk to. They can reach out to any of us, but it's just one person they can talk to. They don't have to talk to that person if they don't want to. They may have a relationship with someone else. So I don't know that, for me, this is an easy, well, it's not an easy, but this is something that I will support. But I do hear the reservation. I do agree we need to tread lightly. But given all the other factors, I think that we can go through this process, and if we don't like it, there's always dialogue happening between the counselors on how things are, progressing on any on a number of things. And so I do think that these reports will be coming back when they do happen, and I just say I'm going to support it.
Although I appreciate their trust in a council person to listen to their concerns, I think it's been stated that no other city board or commission has a liaison, and I think we shouldn't single one out over the others. And I'm still just really not clear what their process would be for them to come to that council person, because as a single council person, we can't really make decisions on our own. It would be something, if there were concerns about the functioning of a board, it would be something that we as an entire council should be considering, and we would have to do that in a public setting, unless there are just 2 or 3 of us talking about it. But I think it should be the entire council that would be listening to these concerns. If they want us just to come to the meetings to sort of facilitate communication amongst the members, that's one thing. But to actually make decisions about what's going on, I don't see that as a good thing.
Well, I'm going to give the CPRB the benefit of having spent a considerable amount of time thinking through what they feel their needs are. Based on their experience as a board, and give it a try. I can't say that I'm convinced that it's a good idea, but at the same time, I can't say I'm convinced it's not a good idea. I feel that it's something that could be tested, and I'll give the board the benefit of the doubt in terms of, they're in these shoes that. and have experienced their shoes as a board and an idea of what may benefit their process, and honor their perspective on that, and give it a try.
Well, I think this commission is unique, or I should say board is unique, because the challenges they face and the topics they have to address are, as you said, Susan, sensitive, but they are extremely sensitive, especially for the people who are affected by events that occur and lead specific allegations to be made with regard to how the community interacted with the police or vice versa. Tremendously sensitive topic. I have not been persuaded that there is strong reason to create a liaison position as such. I don't really see how that will add to the commission's already existing ability to connect with council members. So by having one liaison, that would imply that police CPRB members would be expected to contact just that one member.
I agree.
And that makes no sense to me. I would prefer that the CPRB members feel free and invited to contact any one of the members of the City Council. So with enormous respect for the board members, and especially for Orville Townsend, who is the key person in making this recommendation, I'm not going to support it. I do think, however, it would be good for probably me to send a letter to the individual council members, and if staff could draft such a letter for me, that'd be great, saying we acknowledge your concerns and eventually decided that we don't believe it would be appropriate to appoint a liaison as such, but that we really eagerly invite you to feel free to contact individual council members. Here are their phone numbers, here are their email addresses, here are their private email addresses if individual council members are willing to do that. I certainly am. And make, and couch write the letter in such a way as it makes it very clear that we want them to be able to contact us individually about any matter that they think is really crucial to the operation of the board. So I'm going to vote no. But I would really like to see that kind of letter.
One super quick thing. We are sitting, this is I think the first potential 3-3 that we have. It's my understanding if it's not successful, it's done.
Correct.
That second. So of the three that are no, we have Councilman Saleh that's going to come back relatively shortly. And I think an issue as important as this, we should have all the votes here. And if you guys decided a lighter point, so if one of the three to vote yes to get it on to second consideration, and if Councilman Saleh agrees with your position, then it won't be done. But I think that makes sense given the fact that we do not have a full council.
Would an alternative possibility be to get a motion to defer first consideration to a specified date,
I
August 6th? Or
I would make that motion. So moved.
Is there a second to that motion? Second. All right, so moved by Cole, seconded by Thomas, to defer to August the 6th.
Yeah, when we can decide as a full body.
I'm not willing to do that. I think we have business before the council. Councilmember Saleh got elected to this council to serve the members of this community, and she has chosen to take 2 months off every year to go back to Sudan and see her family. Now, family is incredibly important to me, but to me also, when you get elected to a public body, you should be here to serve the public. And so I don't think delaying votes for that purpose, I don't think it's appropriate. I think we've got business in front of us, and I think we should vote.
With all due respect to Councilwoman Saleh and Rockne and your choice to save this for her, I recall that before she came on to the council, she sat on the CPRB. So I would be just a little bit concerned that she might be a little bit biased towards making a decision on that respect. That's just my opinion.
That's a point I hadn't thought about, yeah. Damn. Do you have a thought there, Bruce?
I guess just to comment on that, I think that many of us sit on, we make decisions on things that we have conflict of interest, potentially, all the time.
Shouldn't.
Well, you don't mean.
I don't mean the conflict
legal
of interest,
conflict,
but
you mean past service,
yes,
where you may feel conflicted emotionally.
Exactly. Well, yeah, I mean, we go to
The lawyer coming up over here. The lawyer.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, we attend a lot of events in our community for our nonprofits, and those we come in and we vote on things they present to us all the time. So I do understand, you know, that she was on a board, but I believe that when you're in this position, I mean, I've been a recipient of, you know, some things through the city, but when I sit here, I am sitting here as a counselor, and I'm thinking for the greater good of this community. And so I don't think that for me, is a valid point. No disrespect to you. So I do think that if we're, you know, 3-3 now, I think it's appropriate to defer until we have the full body.
John, did you already speak?
No, I think it's appropriate to defer on this.
Yeah, I would prefer to defer as well. Without going into details, one of the reasons Maz is not here is because there's enormous trauma in Sudan, and it's been extremely hard for her to get back. And I don't want to go into detail about it.
That's not accurate, Jim, though. I have to disagree publicly because she left intending to be gone for 2 months. That was her intent when she left. It was the same thing last summer. She left and she was gone for 2 months. Yes, there is a horrendous situation in Sudan this summer, and because of that, she was going to try and come back early. But her original intent was to be gone for 2 months, and I do not think this council should defer the work of this body because a council member chooses to be gone.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor. Roll call, please.
It's a voice vote.
Voice vote. So all in favor of deferring to August the 6th, first consideration to August the 6th, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Motion carries 4-2. Yeah. All right. Moving on, item 14, purchase of 1232, 1234 Sandusky Drive. This is a resolution approving a purchase agreement for a duplex property located at 1232, 1234 Sandusky Drive for the South District Home Investment Partnership Program. Could I have a motion to approve the resolution, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Thomas, seconded by Teague. Erica, so please, go ahead.
Erica Kubley with Neighborhood Services. At the May 21st work session, staff discussed with council that we are having a hard time identifying properties for the South District Homeownership Program. And we've been exploring different options over the past 2 months. However, since then, we were able to find a duplex that meets council's program parameters and have entered into a purchase agreement contingent on council approval. The property is located at 1232 and 1234 Sandusky, which is on the northwest corner of Davis Street and Sandusky Drive. The property sustained a fire in April, and the tenants relocated and terminated their leases after that, so it's been vacant for a few months. The purchase price for the entire duplex is $124,000. We will have $35,000 in local funds plus $25,000 in federal home funds for renovations and down payment assistance per unit. We didn't request a formal recommendation from HCDC regarding the property, but did discuss it briefly as part of a broader conversation about the South District program at their meeting last week, and the commissioners were supportive of the purchase, and I can answer any questions you might have.
How are you going to identify potential buyers?
I think we'll work with the neighborhood association as well as the housing authority to reach out and maybe do outreach, like letter outreach to residents.
Is there a spatial process, like, you know, Taylor Boulevard and people who live on Taylor Boulevard and that intersecting street, the name of which I've forgotten?
Davis.
Davis, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, what?
I don't know if our outreach will go in that order, but our preferences will for who would be eligible to purchase. So we may reach out to the entire neighborhood at once.
save time, basically in one process. Okay.
Any other questions for Erica? Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor. Council, anybody else want to address this? Sorry, Martha, I almost blew that.
I wasn't going to let you forget.
I hear you waving.
I was going to jump up and down. So to put my comments in context, I am an architect, I am a green building consultant, and I have also been serving on the Climate Action Steering Committee. And so that is the context on which I make my comments. I think this program is awesome. I think it's a great idea. I love the university program, and I like the idea of extending this. One of the things that I enjoy in these meetings, I'm one of those geeks who watches these meetings at home, and I've enjoyed seeing the increased focus on equity, and it just comes up again and again and again, and I've really appreciated that development over the years, and I've admired how it's been integrated into so many aspects. And I guess my challenge with these comments is to say climate action needs to be in that same vein. It needs to be coming up all the time. And I've already talked about the energy cost burden, the climate changes earlier. One of the things that happens with energy costs is that when you have less money, the percentage of your income that goes towards energy costs is greater. So it's called the energy cost burden. So for people in the low income category, 16.3% of their income typically is going towards energy costs, whereas for people in average and upper incomes, it's more like 3.5% or less. So I looked at the one pager and said, okay, where are we talking about energy costs? Nope, not in there. And I looked also for comments about health, because as I mentioned earlier, there's public health implications with a changing climate. And I looked in here for comments about how, increased filtration will be incorporated into these buildings, because people, we have no way of knowing about the health conditions of the people in that space, and people who don't have health conditions today actually may develop them as air quality worsens. And so I looked for that, not in there. I looked for the words energy efficiency, not in there. I looked for performance data. Are we going to be Energy Star? Are we going to have a HERS rating? Is there going to be home score requirement? There are some federal requirements tied to the home funds, but those are pretty limited. And it just seems like a missed opportunity. And one of the things that I find challenging here is I know this was, because I'm a geek and I watch these things, I know that this was being discussed at the same time we were talking about the Climate Action Steering Committee, the Climate Action Plan. Those were congruent. And I was assured that the city was going to integrate the consideration of climate across all departments. And so I'm looking at this and I'm saying, what happened? What happened to that integration? I don't know. I don't know what happens behind the scenes, so I'm not pointing fingers, but I'm using this as an opportunity to point out a missed opportunity. So, double entendre there. And I guess what I would say is, we've got an architect on staff, we've got engineers on staff, we've got a building department, we've got a sustainability coordinator. All these people could have answered these questions. Why aren't they being asked? And the other item is the sustainability coordinator, she can't do this on her own. The way I work as a green building consultant is I educate the team enough so that they understand the principles that we're considering. So I can't be there at every meeting, and they're not going to pay me for that, but they know what I'm looking for. So when something comes up, they give me a ring. And I check in with them periodically. Are things happening that you haven't told me about, that you forgot to ask me about? And I'm checking in with them. You know, that's a role that a coordinator can do, but they cannot do the heavy lifting in every department. Climate action needs to be spread across all departments and all staff. It needs to be coming up in all considerations. And if you start looking at agenda after agenda after agenda, there's so many agenda items. I could have stood up 4 times tonight, but I really didn't want to bother you that much. But it keeps coming up. Forest View, huge climate implications to that development. Climate implications to why we even need a second entry. There's all sorts of things. It needs to be integrated, and we can't just keep doing the things the way we have been. If you want to accelerate this, we're talking about actions. You're going to have an action plan in 100 days, but we've been working on the climate action plan for 2-3 years now, and we didn't even get it in this. So I'm wondering what's going to change? How's this going to shift? How are we going to lift this? Because you can write all the plans you want, but if it doesn't get integrated across all aspects of the city operations and start infiltrating the community and changing hearts and minds and agitating like you would for a bond issue, how are we going to do this? So I think we need to really look hard, and I know there's a gazillion reasons why it hasn't happened, and I'm sure there's lots of explanations. I'm sure staff are sitting at home going, oh, Martha, but it's this, and it's that, and it's that. And I was like, yeah, I know. It's hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but this is our burden to integrate this across the board. So I ask you to think deeply about how we actually make it happen. It's not enough to just write a plan. We actually have to integrate it in our daily operations. So thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Anyone else? Seeing no one, council discussion.
I personally was very pleased to see this item on the agenda. So I was excited before when Tracy had presented it to us some time ago about the possibility of this, and then was disappointed when they couldn't find any duplexes out there. So this was just kind of a great opportunity. It kind of fell into our hands here, and it certainly is less expensive than building new. It's a start in the right direction for increasing affordable housing stock. There's just great potential here, and I think in regards to Martha's comments, I appreciate all those comments. I think it could be a perfect opportunity to make these more energy efficient. Obviously, I don't know what the extent of the fire was in there or what the cause of the fire was, but there's great opportunity in the remodeling of it to do. And I know Tracy's on top of that with her energy efficiency in some of the rental homes that she does. So I just think it's a great idea, and I'm all for the purchase of these.
I think this is a great opportunity, definitely for the individual, for the area that we had identified. There was a fire, which is a very unfortunate thing. But then for this property to be right in the location, our target location, I think that's phenomenal. And we, are sitting here with the opportunity to definitely purchase this property. Now, I don't know the damages of the building, if 124 is good or not. But 2 homes for 124, to me, seems like a phenomenal deal. I know there'll be updates and that type of stuff, but this, for me, is something that the community kind of brought in conjunction with the NDS department just coming to us and saying this is something that we want to try and navigate in an area where we're trying to make social justice a reality within our community. And so here we have at our fingertip right now an opportunity to help someone become a homeowner. And I think that is phenomenal. There's a lot that goes into homeowning and ensuring that they're going to be successful. I know that the the staff is going to navigate that successfully, as they have done for various other programs. And so I'm excited about this. I think that this will be a great opportunity. And this, for me, I see it as a trial basis as to what might come in the future. And so I'm loving this opportunity and just giving it my full support.
I think this is a great opportunity, as people have said, and in that area, and I think particularly with the pretty strict limitations that council had put on this with absolutely no displacement of individuals. I was, concerned if we were going to find anything. I think that's an issue that we still may have to come back to in terms of looking at that. Not that we want to do that, but I think in certain circumstances we can make that work okay for people. So I think we have to maybe be a little bit more open-minded about that, depending. So I'm glad at least we have one opportunity here. And Martha, I appreciate your comments, because I think, and I'm sure if Tracy were to get up here, there's things that are in here that are probably very energy efficient, and staff is looking at that. But I think what it also addresses is to help educate people and make people more aware of what we are doing. We need to start making more of an effort to have it in the documents that we're doing. And obviously there's still, as we go forward, maybe even more ways that we can be even more cognizant and doing more things. But I think that brings the point that, yeah, we've got the one sheet, and from looking at the one sheet, it's not obvious that anything's being done, although I'm sure it is. So, and Tracy's nodding her head, yeah, we are, which I knew we would be. But it's combining all those things, making sure we're doing what we can, that we can afford to do, that what makes sense to do, but that we're also promoting it and making it clear to people that we're doing those things. So we'll get better. We'll get better.
Yeah, this is kind of, it is unfortunate how the opportunity arose, but it was the silver lining on this cloud that it happened there. And it may be, and Martha, I do appreciate your comments. I'm looking at the, $35,000 budgeted for renovation. It may very well be possible to direct those funds toward energy efficiency rather than, say, what I've seen in some of the university homes where they remodel the kitchen. Maybe something you could negotiate with the potential buyer as to how the funds are allocated. But in some respects, I think it would be, I personally would prefer the funds go toward building improvements related to energy efficiency than kitchen remodel. So anyway, this is really just about the purchase, and then it'll be interesting if we can see where it goes from there.
Tonight I feel like we've had a lot of small is beautiful victories. Sometimes as council we have these big projects, forest view and rezonings on buildings and these sorts of things. But tonight, I think of what we've done on Gilbert Street. That's a small and beautiful victory, a nice preservation. And here, I hear what you're saying, Martha. This was so hard to find. We were trying to essentially get home ownership opportunities for low-income residents in an area that traditionally had not had those opportunities. And I think one of the things that Councilwoman Salih had really done a good job is, as big of fans as we all are of the University program in terms of home ownership, in terms of neighborhood stabilization, there really were people that, although it was not an affordable housing project as such, why not expand those opportunities? And so I think the opportunity that we have here is in this opportunity. We so often talk about renters versus homeowners or long-term rentals. What this really does is allows us some permeability, where someone that maybe has been a low-income renter for a long time has that opportunity for ownership. They'll be able to have that opportunity, and I think that's really exciting. One sort of small ball thought here, one difficulty with the homeownership are these unanticipated expenses. I know we have expertise with staff, and I know that they've thought about, in fact, they highlighted that for us. I'm hoping that as they do this homeownership process, that we can work with those residents for an escrow account or something, because if you're not used to those heating and those sorts of things, I think that's where maybe there was some reluctance on part of the residents to take over that homeownership responsibility, maybe because of those sorts of fears. But I think we can figure that out and make that happen. So step one, it's not the perfect step, but I don't think we can let the perfect of getting stuff done. So mega kudos all around with this project. I'm really looking forward to those residents that are able to sink some roots into that neighborhood.
Good deal. Well, I don't have anything to add. It's already been expressed. I look forward to voting for this. Roll call, please.
Cole?
Yes.
Mims?
Yes.
Taylor?
Yes.
Teague?
Yes.
Thomas?
Yes.
Throckmorton?
Yes, motion carries 6-0. Item 15, council appointments. Applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. Item 15A, Housing and Community Development Commission. We have one vacancy to fill an unexpired term effective upon appointment. And we have 8 applicants for that one position. What's your pleasure, folks?
Well, one of the things that was in the staff thing was it the bylaws or whatever, there's supposed to be somebody on there who either is or has had aid for housing. And it didn't look to me in reading those that necessarily, there's people who had some difficulties in terms of their finances, but I wasn't coming across, unless I misread, anybody who fit that particular category. So I guess that if I am correct in that, then I guess the question is, do we want to go ahead and appoint anybody out of here, or do we want to wait?
I had a question about that too, Susan. I mean, without it being on the application, how do we know unless they volunteer that information? The one young man volunteered that he has had difficulty getting help with rent in the past, but he currently seems to be on his own 2 feet. So I was thinking that too. I mean, if we're following their guidelines, they specifically sent us that memo that said the commission is supposed to consist of those types of persons, and none of them fit that.
Yeah, there's not a question on the application, and staff has had the same conversation today about it. I think there's the application, as Susan noted, mentioned that those are desirable applicants. It would be up to the applicant to volunteer, but with the 2 others, construction and finance, it's going to be easier to tell that qualification from their occupation, right. Less so with rental assistance. I don't think we could probably ask a mandatory question about rental assistance, but we could certainly highlight the desire of volunteering it, maybe on future applications.
So if we chose not to make an appointment tonight, what we would do, re-advertise? But then we wouldn't get any more information about the question at hand. So
my recommendation is you go ahead and make the appointment, and we recognize the issue and we change it for the future.
Yeah, okay. So are there suggestions about who to appoint?
I just want to say that I spoke with Peggy Aguilar, and I think some of you may have met her before. She's a very flowerful spirit. I think is the way that I would describe her. And I do think she has worked within the affordable housing agency. She has significant experience with working with individuals that have needed assistance, and so I do think that she has a great understanding. She is one that is like to collaborate for solutions, and so she just has a great spirit that I think would be good for the HCDC personally.
Well, I don't know any of the applicants, so although Peggy was one that I highlighted, so I don't know if anyone else knows any of the applicants personally. But,
I don't think I do.
She was the only one that reached out, and I read through the other ones, and there are some great opportunities that we can get from others, but this is one individual that I've seen in action a little bit.
Well, I'd be happy and willing to support Peggy. With that being said.
Rockne, Susan, Pauline, do you have ideas?
Peggy does have experience. The other one, the young man I was talking about, Zach, is the one who said he has lived in low-income housing and been homeless, risked homelessness, so he has that experience. But I would be happy either way.
I would support Peggy.
I think Zach is already on the Historic Preservation Commission.
Is or has been, I'd noted that, yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And Peggy has not been, as to my knowledge, and per her answer, on any other commission or board.
I would support Peggy Aguilar as well, which adds up to at least 4 people as best I can count. Could I have a motion to appoint Peggy Aguilar to the Housing and Community Development Commission?
So move.
Second.
Moved by Teague, seconded by Cole. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item 16, announcement of vacancies. Again, applicants must reside in Iowa City and be 18 years of age unless specific qualifications are stated. We have 1 vacancy to fill an unexpired term effective upon appointment to the Historic Preservation Commission for the Woodlawn District. Applications for that position must be received by 5 p.m. Tuesday, August the 13th, 2019. We have 1 vacancy to fill a 5-year term on the Airport Zoning Board of Adjustment, and 1 vacancy to fill a 3-year term on the Historic Preservation Commission for the East College Street District. And vacancies on these positions will remain vacant. Vacancies will remain open until they are filled. So, community comment. Austin, did you want to say anything during community comment?
So, hello there, Austin
Hi, it's
Wu,
good to see you again.
USG City Liaison. It's good to be back in town. The only thing I've heard is that orientation has wrapped up last week. So, in a month or so, get ready for a new class of Hawkeyes. But
quite a few more is the way I understand it.
Yes, there will be quite a few more than last year.
Yeah.
But that's the only news from the university I've heard so far.
Okay, good deal. Moving on to item 15, City Council information. Maybe we can, I got my notes confused here. John, let's start with you and move to the right.
Number 18, are we in?
18, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to say 18.
Wanted to mention that the Open Gardens tour this year, which was sponsored by Project Green, I happened to be one of the open gardens along with my 4 neighbors on the 500 block of Brown Street. And it was, don't know how anyone else did, but we had over 200 parties come through, because Project Green is very well organized with this process. They have, these books that you can fill in the people who come, which we encouraged. And we missed some, but we had roughly 200 parties, maybe 400 people over 2 days, some coming from Des Moines, outside of town. So I think it more than fulfilled its goals, and it was great fun having so many people coming into the north side and onto Brown Street. And we were featuring the front yard, so that meant the whole event was sort of like a party out on the street, because as much as people, I think, with the community garden concept or the garden tour concept, want to go into the backyards, and some would, I kept emphasizing, no, it's really about the front yards, and many of them appreciated that. They really understood that idea. We were emphasizing the idea of this is our outdoor living room, basically, and the continuity of it is part of why it works. So it was hot, but the continuous tree canopy helped.
I have nothing.
Fine.
Let's see here. You talked about the meeting we had with the school district. Coming up this Thursday, the ICAD had invitation to a child care workshop that the Chamber of Commerce and Kirkwood College are sponsoring. It's going to be out at the Kirkwood Center off Oakdale Boulevard at 9 a.m. Several of our emails and messages and topics today talked about child care being a concern and how it affects affordable housing and job, people working jobs out there for lack of child care. So I do plan to go to that. Rockne mentioned the Affordable Housing Coalition Mobile Home Task Force. That's Tuesday, July 30th. I do plan to go to that. And I'm not sure if Maz will be back by then. I hope she is, because she's supposed to join us with that too. This Saturday, we can't forget, on the 20th, the Riverfront Crossings grand opening. Long awaited for that. Let's see, took my grandson there, and he absolutely loved it, the playground. It's, even for an 11-year-old, he really enjoyed that. Let's see, July 25th to August 3rd, the Rummage in the Ramp is coming up. And, and Wednesday the 24th, we have the joint meeting with P&Z. I don't know if we mentioned that or reminded folks of that. That's all.
I have two things I want to mention about Houses into Homes. So on the 9th of July, they had a opportunity for recipients as well as for their board members and community members to come to UAY, United Action for Youth, in Eastdale Plaza, and they just held a opportunity to really see, in my opinion, how diverse our community is and the needs of our community, and how within our community we can support each other. And so it was very artistic, and in some fashion it's United Action for Youth, so there was lots of activities, group activities, partner activities that was quite unique. And United Action for Youth does tomorrow night from 5 p.m. to 10 p.m. They'll be receiving proceeds from sales from the Reunion Brewery in Coralville, and so that'll be taking place tomorrow. So if you're out and about and want to go out and support them, that'll be great. On the 19th, this Friday, I'm going to be attending the second annual Light of Hope breakfast. And so that's going to benefit the CASA and the abused and neglected foster children. So that is going to be this Friday. And it starts at 7:30 a.m. and it's going to be at the Radisson Hotel in Coralville. Excited about the 20th as well, Riverfront Crossing Park. So that's going to be very exciting. Other than that, there will be lots of events coming up throughout this summer, which I hope people are partaking in. And I do hope everybody had a happy 4th of July.
Yeah, I don't have a ton to add other than Houses into Homes. Just a quick elaboration on that. For those of you who don't know, the Houses into Home was a nonprofit started by two women here in the city of Iowa City, I think with a tremendous idea, which is so often when we place people into homes, people don't have the resources to get the furniture. Yes. So this nonprofit, their mission is to provide no cost, as far as I can tell, furniture for these locations. That's a very easy idea to state, incredibly complicated to implement, and the fact that they have pulled this off for 18 months and it's still going and they still are doing this is just incredible. So continuing kudos to that organization in terms of the work that they actually do to serve the community. Obviously, I'm excited about the new park as well. I also love our neighborhood parks, and the other day I was out on a run with my dogs Percy and Ray, and I saw the progress we've made on Creekside Park, and I've been very pleased. It's very beautiful. How close are we to being is it pretty much finished? I mean, it looked like it was almost.
I think there's just a punch list items, and then our crews are going to go in and install the playground if they haven't started already.
Okay. So at least walk by, check it out, enjoy our beautiful parks as we're hitting, middle of summer. School's just around the corner.
Okay, I guess it's my turn. So I either participated in or plan to participate in several of the activities that you've already mentioned. So I'll bring up a few others. Jeff, several staff members, and I met with a group of realtors and apartment managers on July the 8th, discussing how to proceed during this moratorium period that we're in subsequent to the rental cap ordinance banned by the state legislature. So Jeff, when we get to you, if you want to, you might say just a little bit about that meeting. On July the 9th in this room, I participated in a meeting with civic visitors from a variety of countries in which we discussed community engagement in the arts, along with, Simon, you were there, right? I'm getting confused about who was where, when, but along with John Kenyon from the City of Literature and Adam, what's his name, from Riverside Theater?
I can't recall his last name.
Sorry, my apologies. And Lisa Barnes from the Summer of the Arts. Yeah, and it's a very stimulating discussion. I thought they were really enthusiastic, and a lot of great photos were taken afterwards, too. It was really fun to do that. On the 10th of July, I was interviewed by Holly Hart of KICI Radio about our climate action efforts. That was pretty fun. We talked for, I don't know, 20 minutes, half hour, something like that. And if you don't know about KICI, it's a, well, what's the right term here? A short distance radio station that covers basically Iowa City, at least that geographical kind of area. So I was really pleased to be able to do that. And Friday evening, July the 12th, I attended the Vigil to End Human Detention Camps, the one that was held at College Green Park. There were probably 200 people there, roughly. I'm going to attend the ribbon cutting for Alexander Lumber, I should say, on July the 18th. That'll be pretty fun. And other things. With regard to the Riverfront Crossings Park grand opening, I'm wondering whether we've had a chance to invite our two senators, the governor, Representative Loebsack, and our local legislative delegation.
Yeah, the Parks and Rec staff did reach out to all of those individuals. I don't think that we've gotten a good response rate as of yet. I don't think we're planning as formal of a gathering, but Park staff will be reaching out to all of you about the ribbon cutting too.
Okay, good deal. And I want to reemphasize something that Pauline said, that on July the 23rd in this room, we're going to be holding a special work session with the Planning and Zoning Commission, but also leaders of Opticos, to discuss their progress on the South District form-based code planning efforts and related matters.
It's 24th, Jim, right?
24th, I'm sorry, thank you, 24th. And it starts at 5 p.m. here in City Hall. People could come and observe if they are interested. So that's it for me. Jeff?
Real quick, to elaborate a little bit on our July 7th meeting with the realtors and landlords, we reached out to the Greater Iowa City Landlord Association and the Iowa City Area Realtors. Each of those organizations sent a few members to this meeting, so there was a group of maybe a dozen or 15 of us between staff and members of those organizations. We reviewed the goals that the council adopted at the third reading of the moratorium and just reminded them what we're looking at from a staff standpoint. We spent a little bit of time talking about market conditions, and I think we want to dive into that a little bit more to get their understanding of what changes are taking place in these neighborhoods from their perspective, and again, either the management, landlord perspective or the realtor perspective. But I'd say the bulk of the time we spent talking about enforcement issues, and I think there was a very clear consensus that neither of those two organizations really take issue with regulations that the city have put forward, setting the rental caps aside. And they feel like if we need regulations to preserve the neighborhood, that's fine, as long as those are clearly articulated to them and fairly enforced consistently throughout those neighborhoods. A lot of the concerns that we heard centered around communication with our enforcement. So we're going to get together again here in the coming month and go through our communication protocol and examine ways that we can communicate a little bit more clearly with particularly the landlord association and some of the management companies. So I think it was a productive meeting. They didn't come to the meeting with any specific ideas on how to move forward. It was mostly just a discussion of kind of what their experience have been the last couple of years and what they foresee going into the future. So we'll schedule a follow-up. We had agreed to pull together some information for them that they think would be helpful, and they agreed to try to pull together some market condition data that we might find helpful in our deliberations as well.
We are entering the last week of our CHIP-in budget and council strategic plan priorities survey, and it's available on our website front page, so people can scroll down on icgov.org. And although the label says got 5 minutes, it's taking on average about 2 minutes. So if you haven't taken it already, I'd encourage people to participate.
Thanks. Eleanor.
Nothing.
Simon, great. Okay, I think we're done. Could I have a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cole, second by Teague. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned.